Welcome to the Adulting Podcast. I'm Zach Peter, a naturally platinum blonde podcaster, author, and sassy self-improvement addict spewing all those burning questions you're too afraid to ask.
And I'm Abigail Fraher, an unfiltered boss babe, daylighting as a lifestyle guru, stirring the pot on social issues. We're here to help you look cute,
Live well,
work hard,
and stay woke.
Together,
let's conquer adulting. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to #Adulting. I'm Zach Peter.
And I'm Abigail Fraher.
In case you forgot what our names were, even though we introduce it every week.
Let you know every week.
By now, you should know how to spell our names at this point.
Yeah, it's 100%.
If anybody
There's going to be a test at the end of this episode.
Yes, if anybody slides into my DMs with an H at the end of Zach, like, I'm going to cut a bitch.
That's like when people call me Abby. I'm like, did I ever say my name was Abby? Like, don't shorten it yourself. I have to tell you, you can do that.
You need permission.
Right?
Well, I'm excited about today's episode. Today's guest is not only hella hunky, he's well into his recovery. He's a radical transparency coach that's far from lame, and he's here to help us say, fuck shame, and lean into one issue we're terribly bad at embracing: intimacy. Please welcome the author of The Abstinence Myth and the host of the Ignited podcast, Dr. Jaffe.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach, and I will never call you Abigail.
I feel like now I have to just call her Abby from here on out just to piss
do
her
it.
off.
Just
you guys are friends. We're not quite at that level yet. Although based on the pre-recording discussion, maybe we
are. Oh no, we jumped right into the friend zone there. We're good.
We jumped in hard.
Zach can't help himself but step into puns. I love it.
I know.
So before we get started, we have to make you espresso yourself a D. Are you ready?
Sure.
So I'm going to start a sentence. You're going to finish it for me. It'll help the audience get to know you a little bit better and
all right.
Bring you down onto our level. You know, you're just an average person at the end of the day.
Oh, everybody who knows me knows that is as true as anybody could imagine. Yes.
Yes. So the first one is, I can't get through my day without.
I think coffee is actually probably a good way to fill that in. Coffee.
Got it right here. Zach, I'm sure you have yours with your straw.
I'm on Dr. Will Cole's cleanse right now. So I have had to cut back on my coffee intake. So I'm drinking vodka. No, I'm kidding. It's water.
Perfect. I just snorted. Oh, wow.
Hey. The Abstinence Myth. You don't have to quit.
The next one is to stay fit.
Get up super early every morning and work out before my family gets up.
What are we talking when you say super early?
5:30.
Oh, wow. Okay. And do you go on run? Do you have a gym at home? What's your
COVID made me build a gym at home. So I do.
Do you love that though?
I love it.
Love that. Yeah.
Okay, but
the best.
While we're talking about a D being fit, I just have to share for anybody watching the show this photo he posted on Instagram. Fuck shame, right? Of him full naked, and it is a hot tamale right there.
That's something, by the way, honestly, about fuck shame. Like, I've never posted a naked picture of myself anywhere.
Oh, Abigail does it every week.
And we were in Hawaii.
Well, like half naked, okay.
Well, we were in the sauna that like overlooks the ocean in Hawaii.
Gorgeous.
I just done that picture for my wife, for Sophie, who's far better looking and is more used to having pictures where she's almost naked. And I was like, you know what? I'm getting one of these damn pictures.
Right.
That's the story behind that picture. But yes, I've never in my life before posted a naked picture.
But so there's a real fitness routine based off of this photographic evidence. You have a COVID fitness routine.
I'm more fit. I'm 44 years old right now. I'm more fit at 44 than I've been. I think the last time I was this fit, I was 26 or 27. I was going back to school and working out like 2 hours a day. So yeah, it's COVID. There are silver linings and everything is the way I look at life.
Yes.
COVID definitely has had some silver linings. I've gone back to music in a way that I haven't done in decades. And I work out more than ever before because my gym travel time is 45 seconds.
Right. It makes it a lot easier when you just have to like walk down the stairs and you don't need to commit to like the drive.
So much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The next one is, I feel sexiest when I post naked pictures on Instagram. Duh.
Oh, no. That just made me anxious. That did not make me feel sexy. Well, I don't know how deep we want to go in this conversation. So I'll give us two options. One of them is when I am fully transparent and I'm incredibly honest with my partner. That's certainly one of them. But then the other one, and Zach probably knows this from some of our stories, is also when Sophie and I have one of our incredibly amazing MDMA nights, is definitely one of the nights where I end up feeling my sexiest.
I like both of those. I think there's a time and a place for each, right?
Yeah. It's been definitely part of our intimacy journey over the last 5 years.
And how long have you guys been married?
Yeah.
11 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I assume with any marriage, it wasn't, or as I know with any marriage, especially yours, it wasn't an easy 11 years. Like there were many obstacles where you guys really had to kind of rebuild that relationship.
Well, we've been together 16 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
He broke up with me for a year in the middle. So that'll tell you how right you are on that. I cheated on her once with an actual other human being. I then lied to her multiple times behind her back around like sexting with ex-sex partners. And then when I finally figured out, because I'm smart, I figured out when that was off limits, I then decided to just essentially have like video chat sex with random women all over the world for about the next year, which had actually been a part of back from my drug using days, had been part of my life for years. I just never really realized it was a problem until my wife was like, what the fuck are you doing? And so that's when shit really hit the fan.
Okay.
And that was now 10 years ago.
Wow.
So yes, not the easiest route ever, but it's getting better every single year, and it's already amazing.
I love the technicalities that we all have between well, it's technically not cheating if it's on Skype, or it's, it's just texting. It's just an emotional cheating relationship. 100%. I didn't physically do anything. So how did you guys have to rebuild like the foundation of your relationship from essentially breaking it, repeatedly, right? I feel like the trust kind of was broken down.
3 major events. For me, by the way, Sophie got me back about 5 years after this. She cheated on me on New Year's Eve. So she got me back. But how do we build it back? Brick by brick, man. Brick by brick.
Okay.
We went back to basics. And when we say back to basics, like so the biggest one was actually the online thing, because the cheating happened when we were dating. The sexting she found out about while we were engaged. Okay. And again, it wasn't like, it was people I had hooked up with before and just having really inappropriate conversations. Nothing physical happened. But you're right, Zach. I went from like, oh, well, actually sticking it in somebody else is not okay. So I will move like farther.
You're like, let me just move slightly to the right of that.
Yeah, I'll just talk to people that I did it with before, but not quite do it. And then eventually to people that I just don't know around the world, and I'm just seeing by video. But literally, I used to be a meth addict. Sex is a big part of my old story. And so it's like, I was doing sex chatting or whatever, like from the MySpace days and like pre that.
Oh, right? Wow. Okay.
That was I just didn't, it literally just never ended. It just continued. But as Zach mentioned, it's like, you just tell yourself the story of what's okay and what's not. So when we went back to basics, just so everybody knows, porn came off the table. So for a lot of men listening right now, you have to plug your ears. This is maybe hard to hear. And for women, I'm understanding more and more women. So I couldn't watch porn. I couldn't have a conversation alone with a woman by text. So if I was texting with another woman, my wife had to be in on the group text. I was in grad school at the time. Any hangouts with other women were off limits. We're married. Sophie's pregnant. Like, it's pretty far along now. And even I couldn't even go drinking out or like going out with friends with guys without Sophie being there. Like, brick by brick, we destroyed everything and we just started from scratch again.
I feel like I went to therapy with my ex for similar issues. And when the therapist was like, hey, like, you got to stop doing this, like, I'm shocked. Like, you were still able to drink, but it just had to be in the presence of Sophie. Is that,
I'm not a big drinker.
She was like, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not a big drinker anyway.
Okay.
And so it's not like drinking was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But we'd go out. Me and friends would go out to like grab some drinks. But here's the thing. Most of my friends were girls. So
you literally, I feel like this is very, very,
since junior high, I've almost only hung out with girls, which was, I obviously see what this is now, right? Like, I just did at the time. I don't know. I grew up, my mom and my sister were really the only people I hung out with. My dad was always gone. I was much more comfortable around women. But long story short, I slept with like at least a third of my friends. It was not a healthy situation for me to continue. And I also, and now that this is over, it's probably easier to talk about publicly, although we did back then too. I also taught in college. So like I was a professor at UCLA at the time, never did anything with any student, but not a very safe environment for my wife to feel like I'm going into every day, right? Like I'm going in for 5 hours a day teaching like 400 people in the psychology department. So that made her really, really feel uncomfortable. It was my job. I couldn't quit it. But, and again, I'll state it again, like nothing inappropriate ever happened, but there was a lot of tension during that time in our relationship, no doubt.
And what was it like when you did have to give up porn and all those things? I mean, and on your wife, was there anything there? Like, did she have to seek help or counseling like separately from you?
Good question.
To also get over that, or how does that work? Great
question. I love how we got to this from one of your first like questions.
I know. Sorry, we're just jumping right in.
Look, I'm an open book. I couldn't care less. My whole point is to help other people who are struggling like I did. That's literally my purpose in life. So whatever helps. It took a little while before Sophie understood she had to do work herself.
Sure.
I can explain how we actually got to that place. And again, this is not an excuse. What I did was wrong and I shouldn't have done it. But Sophie had essentially one previous very long relationship. She was 21 when we met and had been in a 5-year relationship. So all of high school. In the beginning of college, she was in one relationship. She had been with one other guy and he was abusive and physically abusive and psychologically abusive and sexually abusive. So beautiful woman who is just one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met in my life, but really damaged when we first met. Like, and it seems like I can talk about anything I want to talk about on here. Like when I would try to go down on her, she would cry. Intimacy was really, really uncomfortable. I'm a highly sexual guy. I'm connecting with this woman and it caused her, like I could see it re-traumatize her. But the thing is, I didn't know, even though I was studying psychology and I was doing research, I didn't know how to break through that wall with her. So I just didn't. And I chickened out and I ran to somebody else to get what I needed instead of dealing with it with her. So initially, no, she didn't get any help because I was the asshole who cheated and all this stuff. And so I did a lot of work, but then still kept like screwing up in smaller and smaller ways throughout that. Eventually, I don't remember, we actually became part of a couples group that really helped us. And I think it's through one of those women that Sophie heard something that made her go, oh, I need to go do some of my own work on this. And that definitely did shift for us.
Okay.
And then we've done a lot of couples work. We've done a lot of work individually. And a lot of that work was on, and this is a big piece that Zach mentioned when we started out, on how do we become intimate and honest with each other, even around the stuff that feels uncomfortable and touchy and anxiety provoking. It's actually the stuff you're most scared of saying to your partner that is exactly the thing you need to be able to say to your partner. Right. Because if you don't, what's actually happening is it's like you're here having a pretend relationship with part of yourself and your partner. And then there are other parts to yourself that you're trying to keep under wraps, but they're going to need to be served one way or another. So it took us a long time to figure that out, probably like 4 years to figure that out. But once that happened, it made it much, much easier to keep, ripping apart the layers. And I have some analogies for that later if we want to get to it. But it took a lot of work.
One thing that I noticed that you had said was how something about these were, I guess, things or desires that you had, that you needed. Like, I feel like we often, especially when it comes to sex, is it's like, oh, men need sex. Men need to, womanize a woman because that's a biological part of what it means to be a man, is to spread your seed. With that mindset of like, I need to engage in these behaviors, I know that kind of connects to like your conversations about addiction, where we convince ourselves, or maybe even there's a physical dependency where there's that mindset of like, I need to drink, I need to do drugs, I need to, I'm a man, I need to sleep with 12 dozen women. Is that part of, is reframing that mindset part of your approach towards recovery?
Great question. The short answer is no, but I'll give you the slightly long answer. The longer answer is there's a difference between the things that you want and need because you really want and need them, and the things that you want and need because you're trying to use them to cover up other aspects of your life that you're unhappy with. So like there's this whole big sober curious movement. I love many of the primarily women who are involved in moving that movement forward. But what people are sometimes missing, not always, what they're missing is it's not about the alcohol. It's about, why are you drinking? Right. If you're really drinking with your friends because you just had a really great day and you want to celebrate with them, hallelujah and amen, have the drink. No, alcohol, just so we're clear, alcohol is not medicine. It was used as medicine 300 years ago because we didn't have other medicines. But like, it taxes your liver. And if you do a lot of it, it's bad for you. But if you have a drink here and there, not that big a deal. Everything's fine. If that's how you're drinking, don't even pay attention to it. You're good. Stop listening to this conversation. Fast forward 30 seconds. If you're one of the people who is drinking because, and this happens to me all the time, so people come to me and they get help and they're like, I'm doing your work, but I can't stop drinking. What's going on? Why is it not working? I go, well, if you had to list the first 3 most stressful things in your life, what would they be? And literally, this has happened to me dozens of times. I go, well, my work, my kids, and my husband. Like, okay, well, you just named your entire life.
Your life, right? Like
other than your kids, your husband, and your work, what do you do?
Right.
So like sleep is fine. You like sleep. That's it. That's like the only other thing you do. So of course you drink.
Right.
If your entire life is stressing you out, alcohol is not going to fix it. Alcohol is going to put like this really crappy old Band-Aid on it that's going to make you feel like you are less anxious for the hour that the alcohol affects you for. My entire work rests on this. You got to go fix your relationship. You got to go fix your relationship with your kids. You got to go fix what's going on at work. If you don't do that, you quit drinking, I'm just going to give you a sober, miserable person. That's not a good thing to give people. So around, I'll get it back to the sex. It's not that I need sex. I needed the intimacy. I didn't know how to reach it with my wife, well, my girlfriend at the time, because I was never, I'm a typical Western male. Talking about feelings is like holding your breath underwater for a day. Like it's unfathomable to me that you could do it, right? How many women do you hear? And by the way, this conversation gets complicated sometimes because there's feminine and masculine in all of us. And so I'm talking about the polarity of feminine and masculine. How many times do you hear somebody say, I asked my partner how their day was and they give me nothing. They say, it's okay. It's good. That's the lack of intimacy. That's an inability to talk.
Right.
I didn't have it. Like if you asked me how I was doing, I was good. I was bad. I was maybe sad sometimes. And maybe I was like having fun. I don't know. I had like 4 words to describe how I'm doing. I needed to create a whole new vocabulary to be able to speak to my then girlfriend. I didn't have it. She was traumatized from her past relationship. She didn't really want to talk about this stuff. I had no tools to break through. So what I did is I took what I wanted from that relationship and I went and looked for it somewhere else. But literally, Zach, my excuse in my head was that I was saving my wife. Well, sorry, my girlfriend at the time. I was saving Sophie from like re-traumatizing her and making her cry because of sex. Literally, that's I swear to God, that's how it worked in my head.
Now, did you find that you like compartmentalized? So you were like, oh, you went to Sophie for specific things and then you went here for specific things and then went somewhere else so that you had everything you thought you needed, but it was all through different pathways, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or was it just
maybe, but I think that's true maybe to some extent even to this day, right? Like I get my fulfillment and purpose from a lot of my work. I get my fun and my joy by playing with my kids. I get my intimacy but what happened was I needed intimacy and I want to this day right now as we're talking, I want the vast majority of my intimate connection to come from my relationship with my wife.
Okay.
And then I want to leave a little bit of room for additional intimacy. I have a sister. I love my sister. We got to have an hour-long conversation a week ago. She lives in Israel. It was so filling. So there's still intimacy I can get from other people, but I better have my primary source of intimacy from my intimate partner, right? That just makes sense. Right. So that's what was missing at the time is I needed it there. I felt like I wasn't getting it. Instead of just doing what I should have done as a partner and be like, hey, we need to talk about this, right? Like, I love you. I'm attracted to you. I think you love me and you're attracted to me, but we have this block. How do we get past it? That would have been the adult thing to do. Hey, adulting. We're adulting right now. Right. That would have been the adult thing to do. But what I did instead was I chickened out and I went, oh, there's this girl at the gym that really likes me. I'll just flirt with her. I'll get the intimacy from her.
Right. And was it just the intimacy, or was it, I also like need to feel like somebody wants me?
100%.
Is it like a chase thing, or how does that?
I actually didn't chase the girl at all. Like,
okay, you just,
I went to the gym. I started talking to this girl. I started talking to this girl because I had 2 single friends.
Yeah.
She was kind of cute. And I was like, I think I should connect you with my friends. It just turned out that she, for whatever, maybe because I wasn't chasing her, she kind of put the moves on, and I went for it because, I wasn't getting what I wanted somewhere else. And I, again, made a stupid excuse in my head to go, well, I'll get it here. And then I don't have to bother my girlfriend.
Right.
You know, it's right.
Okay.
So since your book is called The Abstinence Myth, and there was a period of your relationship where you had to abstain from relationships and social outings and porn, did that, like, can you talk about that paradox and how that worked for you?
So again, the abstinence part was from getting it with other people. We were constantly trying to work on how to make that healthy in our life. And I think that does speak to my concept around abstaining with alcohol. And I love that you made the connection. So most people who work in sex addiction or food addictions understand you can't abstain from food and sex. That's not a good endpoint, right? Like, Zach, let's say, I'm not saying you are, but let's say you're a sex addict. If I give you a solution, I'm like, look, I'm going to fix it. You will never be able to touch anybody, have sex, or be turned on. You'd be like, yo, I'm not asking for that. That's a horrible solution to my problem.
Right.
But that's what we do to people with drinking all the time. People drink excessively, or they drink problematically, not because they like alcohol. And if this is something new to anybody listening right now, you need to pay attention. They're drinking because alcohol fixes a problem for them. It's a medicine. And by telling somebody, hey, you drink too much, you got to stop drinking, is like telling somebody you rely too much on your crutch because your leg is broken, you got to take away the crutch. That is the wrong solution. The solution is to fix my leg. Right. So what we say is, look, if you're not in the abstinence myth, the whole point is this: if you're not ready to quit, don't be ready to quit. It's all good. Come get help. Let's figure out what's bothering you. Let's go fix that. And I guarantee your alcohol problem would go down. And 40 to 50% of people come to me, don't come to quit. We help them fix their underlying problems, and then they decide to quit on their own. They go, you know what?
Oh, wow.
Now that I'm not really like needing the alcohol, I actually don't like the effects. The next morning I'm groggy. I kind of feel off. Actually, I don't want to have 6 drinks anymore because I lose control, and I don't like having 1 drink. So I quit, and they quit in the way that I love the most. Yeah. If they go to a wedding and somebody hands them a glass of champagne, they don't have a problem having a sip because they're not like holding themselves back from alcohol. They're just not that interested in it.
Right.
It's interesting. I did this fun, or I don't know if I would call it fun, but I did an experiment last year where I was like, you know what? I want to take a break from dating and sex and relationships and any sort of like romantic or sexual connection with anybody else, because I feel like I'm in this habitual pattern of chasing and wanting a connection that I ultimately then end up running from. And I feel like there's I'm on a hamster wheel of trying to find the solution, but also self-sabotaging myself. So I'm going to take a break from it so that I can work on the internal issues of what's going on under the surface and what's contributing to this. And then if and when I'm ready to date again, then I'll take that step. And so it set me up to kind of really do a lot of the inner work that I think most of us are afraid to do. Most of us are like, oh, well, I'm not in a relationship and it's probably because all guys suck. And it's like, well, yeah, all guys do suck. But like, you know, you can find one that doesn't suck as much or that sucks you in the right way, you know?
Right.
Right. Here's the other thing that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. And I want to hear, Zach, because we didn't talk about this before, if this is something that came out of that experiment for you. We don't realize that we use other people as distraction from the shit we don't like.
Yep.
So if you're upset and nervous, you go on Grindr, you go on Tinder, you go on something, and you're like, let's find a distraction. It's not different than the alcohol.
Yeah.
You're just saying, for the next 3 hours, I'm not going to have to worry about the fact that I hate my job and my landlord is pissing me off and I have to move out of my place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hook up. Why? Because that's going to give me like between 30 minutes to 3 hours of escape. When you take that off, you have to sit with yourself. Mm-hmm. And you sit at home and you go, oh shit, there's like 40 things I hate about my life. Now, I can go distract with something else. I can just go binge a Netflix show, right? Like that's why the addiction conversation is so annoying to me. We pretend drugs are bad. They're not bad. Drugs are not bad. They're fine. It's just if you think they're gonna fix your life, then you're wrong. But the problem is we don't give people other solutions. Like I don't know what your life was like growing up, and I don't know what your life was like growing up, Abigail, but like nobody, I was socially anxious when I was a kid, right? Nobody ever sat me down and said, look, I know sometimes you feel like you don't fit in. It's okay. We all do. We have these things that happen, but it's fine. You know, find the friends you relate to, or just go read a book in the corner and it'll all pass. Nobody had that conversation with me.
Right.
You're left navigating on your own. And no offense, but we're stupid when we're kids. Like we're intuitive.
Yeah.
We know what feels right and what feels wrong, but we have no words for it. We have no tools to do anything with it. So we all develop this function that is we run away from discomfort. And when you're 12, 13, 14, at some point you discover ways to do that. You discover sex and porn and masturbation. You discover drugs. You discover sugar. You discover all this stuff that is really good for escape. And if we think we're going to control addiction by removing the things that are addictive, then buy phones, buy Netflix, buy sex, buy sugar. Like we are never going to eliminate the aspects of what our life can be addicted to. What we have to do instead is we have to have really weird, uncomfortable conversations. Like, hey, how you doing, Abigail? I'm good. How are you? Are you good? You don't really seem like you're good. Seem like you just cried in the bathroom. Like, what's going on? You know, like not right now, guys. Whoever's listening to this.
I didn't just cry.
I did.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
that was Zach.
That's the world. That's the world I want to grow up in, and I want my kids to grow up in. Is the one where you can be like, oh, I'm so sorry you're struggling right now. Is this the kind of struggle? Like, do you want to talk about it and we can have, or do you want me to just leave you alone? Not one of those worlds where, hey, put a smiley face on and pretend everything is fine while you're crying in the corner, you know?
Right.
It's interesting because I feel like it's uncomfortable for both parties. It's uncomfortable for the person that was just crying in the bathroom to be like, I'm just crying because then I'm being vulnerable with you. And then it's uncomfortable for the other person because then they're like, holy shit, I don't want to take care of you. I don't know how to deal with your sadness right now. And, you know, we both need to realize that it's an issue on both ends.
Well, I think if we could fix the two things you just talked about, I think we'd be able to live in harmony.
Yeah.
Why do you feel, we talked about fuck shame. You mentioned that in the beginning. Why do you feel like you can't be honest? Because you're ashamed. You're ashamed that everybody else is doing fine. Everybody else is happy. Everybody else is going about their day and they seem like they're doing great and you're not. And that makes you feel different than everybody else. So you're ashamed, not about what you're doing, but about who you are. You feel like less than. You feel like you're not as good a person. So and by the way, because nobody talks about their shit ever, we're all pretending. We're all carrying that around. So everybody's walking around as if they're the only one sick, but everybody around them is also sick and also just pretending.
Yeah.
That is actually the normal state of things. If we just started opening up more, how many of either one of you ever had this happen? You go to somebody, oh my God, I'm going through this thing I never went through before. And you describe a problem, Abigail.
And they've been through it.
They've been through it. They're going 100%. Through it right now. They were never going to talk to you about it. But now that you mention it, it's an open book, right?
And then it's like a waterfall. You just need that like one person to like feel like, you know, because everyone's different. Everyone's problems are like maybe different, but actually they're not. Do you know what? Like there's only a certain amount of problems.
We feel like we're separate. Right. We feel like we're not good enough. 100%.
Right.
So that's on the one side. And then on the other side, the other thing you described, Zach, is what I was talking about before with Sophie. The reason we're uncomfortable is we're not trained in how to be empathetic. We're not trained in how to hold somebody. Like you think if I tell you that I was just crying in the bathroom, your job is to fix my problem. Right. It's not.
Right.
You can't fix my problem. It's just to make me feel okay about the fact that I have feelings about my problem. Just show empathy. Say, oh my God, that sounds so terrible. That's it. Like, don't judge me for crying. Don't judge me for having a bad day. Just hold space for me and make me feel like I'm an okay human being. So that's why, you know, what was it? 7 minutes into a podcast, I'm talking about cheating and sex issues. You know how many people are going to listen and they stopped listening by now because they're like, this guy's a douchebag. What the fuck? He did this to his girl 3 times. But it happens everywhere.
I also love how like just, you know, straight to the point where you were, and then you're like, oh, and my wife cheated on me. And like, I think it's just very like not, it's not the norm to just be super upfront. Everyone's like, oh, we're going to put this in the closet and close the door. And like, no one needs to know about this but us two. But I think it's a breath of fresh air to hear somebody who has a platform saying those things. Then, oh, well, my wife did that too, or I did that too. And like, it builds a sense of, I don't know, camaraderie there in the sense that they can, like you said, relate.
Yeah.
Even if you're not having the conversation with them directly.
100%. I think more of us need to feel accepted. By the way, just as an aside, because we described that part of my relationship.
Yeah.
Been married for 11 years, 3 kids, love my life, house of my dreams, travel with my wife everywhere. And just like, my wife is still the person that if you told me like, who do you have to spend 24 hours with locked in a room and you can't talk to anybody else, I'm still choosing her 16 years later. I love my life.
Yeah.
It took some shit to get here, but what doesn't?
Right.
I'm curious what you think about open relationships and monogamy, and if that was ever integrated into your relationships, because I feel like that's another big hurdle that relationships kind of run into is like this, like, oh, I need to commit to this person for the rest of, like, I have to commit to this person instead of I'm choosing to commit to this person every day.
It's a great question. I think the conversation is changing in the last like 5 to 10 years. We've definitely noticed a change. Sophie, we've talked about this a handful of times in our podcast ourselves. We sort of call our relationship monogamish, and what that means is we have some very basic rules about what happens in our relationship, and unless they get rewritten, unless we decide that we want to change them, they have to be upheld. And we don't do anything separately, so we're not an open relationship. Everything we do is together, but we're also open to having experiences that push our boundaries. Now, people here, I say that to my guy friends. They're like, oh my God.
That's sick.
Like, the luckiest man I've ever met. And I'm like, I want you to think of what this actually plays out like, because sometimes you push your boundary and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you're fighting it with your wife for 2 weeks after. It may have been fun in the moment, but now you're like, oh shit, my next 2 weeks are a mess. Sometimes, news alert, one of my really, really good friends said this to me once. Guys think that when I say that, it's like, they're just naked women running around the house all the time.
Right.
And we're just having orgies. And, there have been parties where maybe that's like pretty close to the discussion. But here's the thing most guys don't have to think about. And that is the moment you open up the conversation with your significant other as to what you're open to, guess what she gets to do? Tell you what she wants.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want to be in a radically transparent relationship, you're going to hear some stuff that maybe makes you go like, all right, so how do I feel about that, right? But here's the thing, and Sophie and I talk about this all the time. So we both have to be in the room. We both have to agree to whatever it is that's going on. And at any given point in time, if any one of us decides, hey, I thought this was cool, but I'm not cool with it anymore, we get to end it. Those are our rules. Okay. And they were developed by experience, by the way. But but here's the thing. A, we know that we can change the rules if we want to by sitting down and having a conversation with them. Secondly, we're 16 years into this, but I'm hoping we got like another 60 years.
Yeah.
And so the way we really think about it is more like this, I know I'm simplifying the discussion, but what's your favorite food on planet Earth, Zach? Like the thing
French fries.
you love. French fries. Love it. Okay. For me, it's like chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Could you have French fries all day, every day as your only meal for like even a week?
No.
For the rest of your life, like it would make you want to throw up. You'd stop eating, right?
The idea of it alone makes me want to throw up.
Yeah. So like for me, it's chocolate. But if I've had 3 bars, I'm done.
You're good.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to have any more chocolate for like weeks. And I know it's an oversimplification. There are humans and emotions involved. But what I'm saying is this. I'm not going for a 3-year relationship. I'm not going for a 2-year. I'm going for like a 90-year relationship. And do I really believe that my taste, my wife's taste, and what we want out of life is going to stay the same? And so because we committed to each other is what I said to my wife, look, I will accept you and I will be with you as long as you stay the same and I stay the same and nothing ever changes and we both want the exact same thing forever. Or did I say, I'm with you on this road, no matter what? If it's the latter, then know for a fact, your person's going to change. If you're with them 40 years from now, they better not be the same person you met 40 years earlier. Because if they are, we have a totally different discussion to have.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you are probably not the same person. So why not create, and again, we play with boundaries. So it's like, why not create an area you're comfortable within and say, look, if something comes up we want to explore, let's be honest about it, versus what happened when we started, which is, let me not talk to my partner about this because they're going to be uncomfortable with it because I'm weird about having a strange conversation, and go experiment on my own.
I like that.
I think that's so different than I think the typical engaged couple's idea going into marriage. And I think that's also why, like, maybe I'm single still, Zach, but like, I'm like on that, the transparency thing. Like, I'm not one to sit there and be like, yeah, we're only going to sleep with each other for the rest of our life, and that's how it's going to be. Now, if that's something that happens, sure. But I just think it's not the norm to be open to having those kind of conversations with somebody, because it automatically gets like, oh, you're cheating. And it gets like almost angry versus being like, hey, why can't we talk about this? And I like, how do people, that's not done in marriage counseling. No one's sitting there like, hey, like, are you into orgies? Like, are you into, fucking like, whatever.
Anything.
I don't need to share my like whatever.
Fuck shame, Abigail.
Go ahead.
My thing's like, that's not the norm. That's not how couples do it. They get engaged, they get married, simpler. And then it's secretive.
It's so much simpler even, because Sophie and I had a couples, you're so right, but it operates on such a basic level. It's insane when you really think about it. And then when you see what happens in the real world with couples. Sophie and I had a relationship workshop that we held online, like 12, 13 couples in it. And in the middle, we had a very simple exercise. We had people look at each other's eyes and tell them what turns them on the most. Okay. That's it. Sounds really simple. Turn to your partner, they're all married, and say, scary. I like it most when you do this, or this is what I've learned in life turns me on the most, or when something like this happens, I get really hot. Whatever, like any way you want to describe it, but just describe the thing that turns you on the most. We want to be sex positive. After that exercise, all but one couple told us that was the first time they'd ever told the other person what they like.
Which is crazy.
11 married couples. I don't know how many times they had sex. Some of them had kids. Like, you never told your person. And now imagine how many things they'd done that they don't like and pretended that they like because they didn't want to offend the other person. And then how many missed days and opportunities did they have to just go, hey, can you move to the right a little bit? Or you're doing it this way, but I like it better when you do it this other way. When we're talking about expanding boundaries, and this is very important, everybody automatically goes to the other people thing. Mm-hmm. Forget other people for a second. What do you want? Right? Like, we live in a puritanical society, right? You can ignore it. But America was built literally by the Puritans. Right. It's in the name. It's in the name of the people who created this country, the Puritans. It's like this concept of religious purity and cleanliness and simplicity. Sex is bad. And you only have sex for procreation. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that you're going to talk to somebody about where you like being touched, or what position you enjoy, or move your tongue this way instead, like, there are people getting uncomfortable listening right now because these words are not words that they're used to hearing. This is your fucking partner. And the pun was intended there, right? This is the person you're supposed to be with. Right. You're not going to do you not tell them what food you like? Like, if you hate pizza, are you going to let them take you to pizza week after week? Or are you going to one day say, you know what? Hey, bro,
I fucking hate pizza.
I hate pizza. I don't give a fuck what's on it. I hate pizza. But then you go have sex and you're like, kumbaya, everything's fine. I hate this, but we'll be fine on the other side. We have to take these limitations off of ourselves. And so toys, videos, just playing out fantasies, just playing out a fantasy that you have. How many of us are scared of telling our partner a fantasy of ours? Why? Go back to fuck shame. We're afraid that if we say to my partner, hey, here's a fantasy I have. I want to pretend like I just met you and we have it. And I'm going to go to a hotel room and you'll be in my room by mistake. And I'll be like, oh my God, this is my room. And we'll have sex. Why do you feel weird? Because you think your partner's
going to judge you.
What the fuck is wrong with you? You're crazy. I'm leaving you right now. But that's so sad that so many of us live in relationships where we're not sharing who we are with our partner because we're afraid that they don't like us. It's terrible.
And it's like, who are you in love with? Are you in love with me, or are you in love with this fake
idea,
personality, this fake Facebook avatar that I'm putting out to you that isn't actually who I am? And why are you afraid to be seen in the world, especially by the person you've chosen to stay with and, you know, the one dick you've decided to commit to for the rest of your 80 years on this planet?
Yes. And this is such a simple conversation, but it's not easy to carry out because somebody has to own that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like somebody, it's never, those of you who are waiting for both of you to figure this out at the same time, it's never going to happen.
Someone's got to bring it up.
One of you is going to figure this out
Yeah.
and they're going to have to come to the other person. Now, the other person hasn't even had this thought yet. So you're coming to them. You've been together 12 years. Sex is like mediocre. It's okay. It's not terrible. You don't hate it, but it's not great. And you're like, I guess I'm stuck here for the rest of my life. And you're going to come to them and say, hey, baby, I was listening to this podcast and, you know, I was really thinking there are a lot of things I haven't told you about what I like sexually. Of course, it's going to be fucking uncomfortable.
Right.
They weren't, it's Tuesday at 4. They weren't waiting for this conversation.
And I think a lot of people get like defensive about it too. It's like, no one's picking on you. Like it's not directed. It's just like an open, like you said, an open conversation. And like, what do you suggest as far as like both Zack and I are single, as we have a relationship in the future and, you know, get to know somebody, like, when's that time?
Love it.
Is it too soon to start it immediate? Like have that conversation, you know, obviously maybe not the first date, but like,
FYI, here's my list of sexual desires.
Right.
I would say like, so again, let's
how does that work?
Let's move it back from the sexual desires piece
Sure.
a little bit and go back to how we started talking about this, which is we're all walking around believing that we have to pretend to be somebody else, because if we pretend to be somebody else, then somebody will like us and then they'll like us. But now we have to keep pretending to be that person we pretended to be before, because we're going to live the rest of our lives scared that if we really show them what's behind that avatar that Zack mentioned, then they're going to be like, but you didn't tell me you were this person. You told me you were this other human being. I'm going to leave the one that you really are. That's at the core of what we're talking about, right?
Sure.
So we're all pretending.
Right.
So there are a couple of things that I've noticed, and sometimes it happened to me in dating. Sometimes it happens to me just in regular relationships, sometimes with work, and sometimes with my partner. How can you start the interaction in the most authentic way and then maintain and keep doing the work on making the conversation as authentic as possible? So here I'll reveal something I don't think I've ever talked about. One of the funny things, it's COVID times. And so back in the day before COVID, remember the days before COVID?
Right.
Sophie and I would so when we do an MDMA, sometimes we did it alone. Sometimes we would have some friends over and we would all do it together. That was one version of socialization. You can get together with people. You knew a lot of them. Maybe a friend would bring another friend over, whatever. We didn't grow up in the age of dating apps. Like 16 years we've been together. Tinder didn't exist, right?
Right.
So as a funny like way to meet people and see what's out there, we decided to like get an app and like get on it together. And the funny thing about it is obviously everybody's experienced this. Like, and those of you who are dating, what do you say first? Like, how do you even start the conversation? Because people are getting dozens of messages a day. How do you set yourself apart? But here's the thing that I think is really interesting for all of us to hear is like, you set yourself apart by being the real you. And nobody else that sent them a message that day is the real you. Now, what does that mean? Some people are not going to like you.
Right.
It's okay. That's a good thing. You do not want to end up on dates with people who don't like the real you.
Right.
Next piece, and I've dealt with this a lot in my life. I literally just had a conversation with a client about this right before this podcast. Sometimes what feels like rejection is just being overlooked and forgotten. We live busy lives. Somebody might have read your message, forgot to respond. Read your message, meant to respond, and something else happened. Or just not see it because they have, I don't know how many unread emails I have in mind, but like 100. So maybe you're one of those 100. We get butthurt. Oh, I thought we were really good together. You didn't respond back. Sometimes just a really simple message like, hey, I'm just pinging you back. I know we haven't caught up in a while. Or I didn't see you respond to the message. I really love your picture or your profile, whatever that is. Would love to connect if there's a chance. Like we don't always have to drive the line that is like the movie version of our lives. We can just be us. And I have to do this with Sophie all the time. Stay authentic. I say something that my wife likes and we're good. That's great. But now I have to worry about not only keeping, like not rocking the boat because everything is safe. Because if something comes up, there's an uncomfortable moment for me. I have to figure out what my internal mechanism is to be able to say that to Sophie. So I have some tricks that I use with my partner. And if this is relevant to anybody else, then by all means, you get to steal them. I have those thoughts sometimes of, tell me if you ever had this. I should tell this to Sophie. No, it's okay. She doesn't need to know. Or it does, or this isn't that important. Like right on the heels of thinking I need to share it with her, there's the next piece, the part of me that's ashamed, that's trying to explain to me why I don't actually have to share it with her. What I learned is one of my easiest tactics. If I wait on that, I will never share that with her until she finds it out on her own. And when she finds it on her own, she's not going to be that happy about it. And it could be about me forgetting something at the market. It doesn't have to be big stuff, guys. The thing I learned how to do is I text her right away with that. Hey, babe, just needed to tell you, this thought came up in my head. I just need to get it out to you. I dump it as soon as I realize it. Why? My wife not only gets to know the real thought, she gets to know it in real time.
Right.
I'm not like waiting to dump on her in the evening,
Sure.
but instead I get to share when the thing comes up. So if you're dating somebody and there's even a slight level of discomfort, don't let it build up.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Hey, I told you that thing and you had that look. I could be totally taking it personally for no reason, but I just wanted to bring it up because it made me uncomfortable.
And I think that, but as you bring that up, I think there's like this innate fear that people have, like, oh, if I start off with this person that I'm just dating right now, I'm going to come off as too needy or too clingy. And then, but like the restructure, the reframing of that is like, but the person that is going to be your partner that you're going to want to be with is not going to find that as needy or too clingy.
Gotcha.
They're probably going to appreciate the honesty and the transparency.
And I also think there's a difference between being like, hey, I hadn't heard back from you. And every day being like, what are you doing? Why didn't you text me back? Why didn't you text me back? Why didn't you text me back? Like, shut the fuck up. They have other things going on.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between creating the dialogue and then also being a psychopath.
And on multiple levels. Like even let's just break down what we just said. So why are we that person? Because we don't trust and we are scared.
Right.
You're only checking up on somebody 50 times a day because you're scared they're fucking you over.
What are they doing?
Let's be honest.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
If you knew that they're really yours and they're doing what they need to be doing, you'd be cool. Right. So here's the thing. Back to radical transparency. How about communicating with your partner? Hey, you know what? I get weird sometimes when I don't hear from somebody for like 2 days in a row. So I really like to just check in at least once a day. I don't know how that works for you, but sometimes when I'm with somebody regularly and I don't hear, it comes from the fact that I was in this other relationship, 15 years ago, 4 years ago, the last relationship right before you. And when they wouldn't write me, I found out later when we broke up, that's when they were doing shit they shouldn't be doing. So I don't know if this will be here forever, but it's a feeling I have. Again, think back. Why are you not saying that? You're not saying it because you think that you're going to say it to a person and they're going to think you're weird and awkward and bizarre and dump you.
Yeah.
Right.
But if somebody can't hold space for your needs,
then they're not the one anyway.
So date them. Now, I'll put a caveat in there. If you just want to bang, like if it's just it's just a day and you just want to get some, then the play is different. You're just looking to hook up and the rules are not the same. I'm talking about long range relationships that are going to last, dozens of years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You want somebody who's going to hold your hand. My wife, Zach, I know you've met Sophie a handful of times. My wife is an incredibly positive person. She's like one of the most, she like radiates light. But if you think that I've known her for 16 years and she lives like that every single moment of her life, you are crazy. I've seen her in her darkest moments. I've seen her in the moments where she doesn't have that source of light in her anymore. I better figure out a way to love her both those ways. I'm not just a friend of hers. I'm her partner. I need to be able to hold space for all of it. So she better be able to communicate that with me and I don't run the other way.
I love it. And you're right. And I know your relationship, I think, always looks so everyone has this like Instagram life where it all just looks pretty and perfect, but like you guys are also so vulnerable and honest about what you've been through and where you each are at that it makes me want to like, you know, just have sex on Instagram Live so I can be fully transparent with people that follow me.
I have a great sauna in Maui if you want to do it there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sign him up.
So we like to close out each show with just kind of like our biggest takeaways from the conversation. Abigail, do you want to start? Or actually, Abigail, yeah, do you want to start?
Yeah, always. I don't know why you ask anymore. I'm just always ready to start. So I think my largest takeaways were that it's not wrong to like feel like transparency is okay. And I shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that like I am open to having those conversations. I think the second thing is based on everything I've heard today, it's just a matter of having that dialogue, not even just around sex, but around everything in your life. And that I think can cross over to friendships as well. Just being open and not just doing yeah, it's fine. And giving yourself some time to kind of feel other people out, and it'll just be more harmonious.
Yeah.
And then I think lastly, like you said, just being authentic and not worrying about creating a portrayal of what you think you should be to like get that person.
Take off the avatar.
Yes.
I think mine would be when it comes to like addiction or dependency or these issues that we think are the issue. We think the issue is alcohol. We think the issue is drugs, but really it's all the shit underneath it. And that's why just abstinence or just taking it out of your life isn't actually going to solve the issue, because all the issues are still going to be there once you remove it from the equation, which is usually why you end up going back to it. My second takeaway is relationships like sex are really shitty when you're faking them. So just be honest, open, and real.
Yes.
And then I think my last takeaway is that I just need to get invited to like one of these orgy parties with Adi and Sophie.
I love it. Well, when COVID releases itself, we now have the perfect house to have those at. So we will send you an invite. It's a lot less like, it's funny, right? People imagine, like, even when you imagine like people getting together to party, they're far from orgies, but but they imagine one very kind of specific thing that you've seen in movies or whatnot. And for us, these are still about intimacy building opportunities. That's exactly what they're there for.
Right.
Yeah.
But I love the takeaways. You know, if we can create a more transparent world where we all get to have more honest conversations with each other, I think it'll be a much, much better one.
I agree. Thank you, Adi. Where can people follow you? Where can they check out your podcast, buy your book, and get a one-on-one coaching with you? Yeah,
so the easiest place probably is adijaffe.com, because that's just my name and it's going to be here in the podcast, so you'll be able to do that. I'm at Dr. Adi Jaffe on Instagram. And if you want to find out about more of what's Ignited doing or about our podcast, and IGNTD is how we spell Ignited. We kept the first I and eliminated all the other vowels, IGNTD. And you'll hear about our addiction work, our relationship stuff, and our podcast.
I love it. Thank you so much for chatting with us today and saying fuck you to shame and kind of pulling back the curtain on what it means to actually have intimacy in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being willing to have such a transparent conversation.
All right, guys, you can give me a follow at Just Plain Zack if you want to keep up with my cute selfies.
And for my half naked photos, you can follow me at Abigail _AF.
Don't forget to follow at The Adulting Podcast. Abigail has really great half naked selfies, and you're going to really appreciate them. Check out theadultingpodcast.com to find out all platforms that we're available at. If you have a YouTube channel, subscribe to us right now. If you have a Roku device, go and subscribe to our show right now so you can watch full episodes.
Yes.
You can always listen on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, all the places. So go and subscribe and leave us a 5-star review, because we're millennials and we love that validation.
Love it.
All right, guys. Until next time, we'll be
#adulting.